Brave Podcast Network.
What if you wake up someday and you're 65 or 75 and you never got your memoir novel written? Or you didn't go swimming in those warm pools and oceans all those years because your thighs were jiggly and you had a nice big comfortable tummy? Or you were just so strung out on perfectionism and people-pleasing that you forgot to have a big, juicy, creative life of imagination and radical silliness and staring off into space like when you were a kid. It's going to break your heart. Don't let this happen. This podcast is going to make sure that Anne Lamott, one of my favorite authors, wrote that. Isn't she brilliant? I don't know about you, but I felt that deep in my soul, and it was the inspiration for this episode, number 54, Overcome Fear. 3 ways to start living a full life. Hey, it's Amanda Carroll. I'm your host. I'm so glad you are here. Let's get into this. First, I want to talk about the cost of fear. In life, fear can be paralyzing. It can cause us to miss out on opportunities, relationships, and moments that could have changed our lives for the better. We all face some type of fear, and it's important to acknowledge it, learn how to overcome it in order to live a full, productive life. In this podcast, you're going to learn 3 ways that you can start living a full life and conquer fear today. You can make sure you don't waste your life because of fear after this. If you love Christian music and you want to know what's going on in the artists' lives and their stories, you got to check out my friend Corey Mann's podcast. It's called What Else with Corey Mann. He is the very first host to come on as part of my new network, the Brave Podcast Network, shows that inspire you to live a strong and courageous life. I chose Corey for many reasons, but most of all, because I love the way he gets to the heart of some of the music that touches your soul. He's able to talk to today's top Christian artists, get their stories of their life, the stories of why they create the music they create, and what's really going on behind the scenes. He's a fantastic interviewer, and he's also a really great friend. Corey doesn't just say he's your friend. He practices the art of friendship. He regularly works on it. That's why I'm honored to welcome What Else with Corey Mann as part of the Brave Podcast Network. You're going to love his show and everything you learn. Check out What Else with Corey Mann. The link is in the show notes. So the cost of fear. We're going to talk about that first before we get to the 3 ways to start living a full life. Why? Because I think first it's really important to understand how fear is limiting your ability to enjoy your life right now. Georgia O'Keeffe, she's a fantastic artist, one of my favorites. She wrote, "I've been absolutely terrified every moment of my life, and I've never let it keep me from doing a single thing that I wanted to do." That's the kind of spirit that I want. And that I want for all of you, my brave babes listening, to just do it scared instead of feel like being scared says, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. No, I think that's a big blinking green means go sign. So think about this. What have you missed out on because you were afraid? I'll go first. I was afraid to chase down my dream of being a television news anchor and making it on the Today Show after college. So I put my career on the sidelines and got married to be more secure. That marriage didn't work out and made me even more insecure. Another thing, I was afraid to call off the wedding after he hit me for the first time because the invitations had already been sent out and I was afraid what everybody would say. It still didn't work out. I asked my tribe of brave babes on our Facebook page. You can always join us. Just search Get Your Brave on Facebook groups. I asked them, so what was the cost of your fear in your life? I asked them, what was the cost of your fear in your life? I wonder if you see a glimpse of yourself in one or maybe even all of these. Melissa said, I let fear keep me from several things, but the one that sticks out the most is when I was 19. I was accepted into master's commission in Arizona to become a pastor, and I didn't go. That is a regret I carry with me. Triveca said, I've missed out on a lot Because I'm a struggling single mom of 6. 3 are adults now, but I still find myself missing out on life. Nan said, starting my own catering business. Fear of what ifs. What if I fail? Fear of security. I won't have health insurance. It just kept going and going. A dear friend, Becca, wrote me a book. She said, I feel like this year has been the great fear reckoning for me. I've made a lot of choices over my life that started young, driven by fear. Like many, I had a fear of failing or not being good enough. So I steered away from trying to do a lot of new things and quickly zoomed in on what I did well and doing it even better. There were little things like I didn't try skiing until I was 30. I didn't take pre-med classes because I was worried I wouldn't get an A. I didn't try out for a sorority because I was worried I wasn't friendly or pretty enough. It's a pattern that starts small, but then gets fixed until you find yourself 40 years old in a marriage that isn't right, with 20-year eating disorder and living a life you know you don't want, but fear has kept you stuck, paralyzed there. Fear of letting people down, fear of being alone, fear of being fat. I mean, all of them. She went on to say the greatest cost is letting yourself down and betraying the voice inside that says, I want this, or I don't want that, and not listening to it. It leaves you broken in so many ways until one day that voice says, enough, and you start to decide, I choose courage over comfort. Comfort, Brene Brown said that, and start making decisions based on hope and what if and why not, because this fear thing has left me broken inside. By the way, Becca's doing great now. She's remarried, she's happy, and she's healthy. So what does God say about fear? I love this in John 10:10. Fear is a thief in your life. It's time to stop allowing that thief to steal and kill and destroy the rest of your life. Because Jesus said, I came to give you life to the full until it overflows. This podcast is about teaching you how to get that. I want it to be a positive force in your life. But first, I want you to get a little mad. I think it's good about what fear has stolen from you. Not regret, because we can get it back. We can get it back. We have to learn the path to get our life back. And that's what I'm going to teach you. The pandemic had us practicing fear of going to the office, fear of going to the grocery store, fear of associating with our friends or even worshiping together. I'm not going to do that anymore. It's time to practice bravery. You know this. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's having fear and doing it anyway. That's why I'm going to teach you how to do it, how to put that voice of fear, the enemy, on mute and crank up the voice of courage, Jesus. So what is really the cost of fear? It's different for men and women. I did some research on this. A 2015 article from the University of Massachusetts, Boston. It was an economist, a woman. She says that the experience of fear has been highly gendered. Men learn to fear because they associate such emotions with a dangerous lack of control over their selves and world. To avoid this, men gravitate away from the emotional world of fear and anxiety towards a more analytical and objective one in which logic rules over feelings. This must be why so many women struggle in their relationships. They're afraid. They're always begging their man to open up and share his feelings. He's actually afraid to, so make him feel safe. She went on to say women often base their decisions on the fear from negative outcomes. Wow, are the hairs on your arm standing at attention too? This must be why so many women now are feeling unfulfilled and unhappy with the course of our lives. We didn't take any risks. We were raised to choose the safest option instead of forging our own path and chasing down our heart's desires. Here's some of the negative consequences of fearing fear from Psychology Today. Fear of authority. Could be you're afraid to ask for that raise or a promotion because your boss controls your financial security. So you have a fear of a possible negative outcome, but you never grow. Decline in productivity. When you live in fear, it's impossible to get anything done. You're unable to focus at work. Your home's a wreck. Your life declines. Been there. Relationship setbacks. Spouses, romantic partners may come to fear each other's reactions, especially if there is a history of uncontrolled anger in the home. She goes on to explain, what will your in-laws do, for example, if you fail to send a thank you note for a birthday present, or You send one that isn't to their liking. You may not fear physical harm in those cases, but you fear disapproval. And then misinterpreted gestures. If you have deep-seated anxieties about how well you fit in with the family as a whole, you may interpret what might be a neutral glance from an in-law as a glare filled with criticism. Yeah, I've been there from a lot of different people. This fear, that it engenders, only makes things worse. You may behave in an unnatural and overly guarded way that in turn creates actual grounds for negative feelings and poor communication. Your fear of negative outcomes is destroying your ability to have healthy relationships with others. It also can destroy your ability to have a trusting relationship with Jesus. In some evangelical circles, like the one I grew up in, women were actually taught that choosing others over ourselves was the loving and biblical view, like it was our duty. We were raised to die to ourselves instead of living as brave examples to our family, like our brothers. It's okay. There's still time to undo this, and Jesus will still love you. I can't find anywhere in the red letters from Jesus in my Bible that says women should live extra cautious and super safe and stay at home. That's the modern evangelical culture that taught us that to fit in. Instead, Jesus was revolutionary on how he spoke to women in the Bible. It was much different than the other religious leaders of the day. He treated women as equals. Man, I love that about Jesus. Jesus valued women as much as he valued men. And then during that time was crazy. The thing that was so different about Jesus is how he spoke directly to women in public. It wasn't even done then. I love this passage. James Borland wrote this in How Jesus Viewed and Valued Women. He wrote, Jesus' regard for the full intrinsic value of women is seen in how he spoke to the women he addressed. He spoke in a thoughtful, caring manner. Each synoptic writer records Jesus addressing the woman with the bleeding disorder tenderly as daughter, and referring to the bent woman as a daughter of Abraham. It infers that Jesus called the Jewish women daughters of Abraham, therefore according them a spiritual status equal to that of men. It is quite possible that you have used fear and duty as an excuse to limit your life. You're afraid of the outcome of what others will think about you if you chase down your dreams instead of sacrificing. I feel so strongly that this is not what Jesus wants his daughters to do. He wants you to live. He wants you to serve him. He wants you to lead. If you ever question whether or not you are worthy to be claimed by Jesus as his daughter, and whether or not you are worthy of choosing a brave path for your life, remember the woman at the well. I relate to her so much because she too is drastically misunderstood in history. You might know the story. In the middle of the day, Jesus happens upon a well to get some water, and he meets with a woman there. She's alone. It's very out of the ordinary. The women of the day traveled in a group in the morning to the well to get water. It was safer together and cooler in the morning to get water for the day for their family. The woman that would go by herself to the well in the heat of the day was avoiding the gossip and criticism of the way that she was living her life with men. It's likely you haven't been told the full story, though. We've been taught that the woman at the well was a dirty, rotten sinner, when actually she's the woman that changed the world. Here's how it went down. You probably know the story. She's at the well. Jesus joins her. He asks her for a drink, which was crazy that he was even talking to her. And she offers it. He says, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring with them, giving them eternal life. And she begged for that water. She says, give me this water, then I'll never be thirsty again. And he says, go to get your husband. She says, I don't have a husband. Jesus says, you're right. You don't have a husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. She says, you must be a prophet, because he knew exactly what was going on in her life. It was that moment that he told her that he was the Messiah. He was the one called Christ. And she went back to her village to tell everyone. The woman at the well was the first person he declared to, I am the Messiah. He used her purposely to then go and tell the world that the Messiah has come. Sunday school teachers have used that story to teach us about how Jesus will still accept a sinful woman. But that's not the full truth. Likely this woman had multiple husbands because she was infertile. During that time, if a woman was unable to produce a child, her husband could just divorce her. She wasn't educated and she couldn't get a job, so she had to keep marrying and keep trying to have a baby to prove her worth as a wife. Jesus did not judge her. Because of the way she was living her life, he loved her. Not only did he love her, he chose her to declare the truth about him to the world. I imagine that was a very brave thing for her to do, considering she was probably an outcast in her village that everyone looked down upon because of her past. I wish we had her name. Like, the woman at the well is the original brave babe. She muted the enemy's fear in her head that said there could be a negative outcome if you go and tell the village that you met the Messiah. It was too important to care about that. What other people would think. She didn't care. Her encounter with Jesus and his unconditional love and empathy caused her to crank up her courage because the woman at the well got her brave on. She risked exposing her greatest shame, and people from the village streamed to see if this was the real Messiah. She could have run away to hide, but no, she was brave. The woman at the well was the very first evangelist. And I love what happened next. It says, many Samaritans from the village believed in Jesus because the woman had said, he told me everything I ever did. When they came out to see him, they begged him to stay in their village. So he stayed for 2 days, long enough for many more to hear his message and believe. Then they said to the woman, now we believe, not just because of what you told us, but because we have heard him ourselves. Now we know what he is, indeed the Savior of the world. The cost of her fear would have delayed the world knowing that the Messiah was here and ready to begin his ministry. What is the cost of your fear? What could Jesus do if you silenced your fear? Put it on mute. Push past your so-called shame and chase down the life that Jesus wants you to live. That abundant life of unmerited favor is right around the corner for you. You could choose to live a safe life. No one would probably blame you, but it will eventually backfire. There is a giant cost to doing nothing, and that is nothing. So let's do something. Here are the 3 ways to start living a full life again, even if you have fear. Okay? We're doing it anyway. I've got 3 ways to do this. Number 1, start identifying and facing your fears. Okay, bear with me. I know at first you're like, no, don't make me Amanda. I'm not being pushy. We're going to ease ourselves into this, okay? The first step towards overcoming your fear is to just identify them. You probably already know. Maybe just spend some time, put me on pause and write down in your journal, or write this down as something to do today, or maybe just think of them right now. What are the things that you're afraid of? Identify them. It's okay, make a list. Don't freak out. Why am I having you write these down? It's so we can start working on them and breaking through with them. Take time to reflect about what you are afraid of. Write it down or talk to somebody you trust about it. Once you know what your fears are and why they exist, then you can start taking steps towards facing them. This is just step 1. I remember I was afraid of becoming a single mom. I'm a 3rd generation single mom. My grandmother's husband died when my mom was 6, and my mother got divorced when I was 10 years old. And then I got divorced when my kids were 4, 2, and 1. And I remember even when I first got married, I always had this fear. Fears come true. You have to mute them in your life. It says in Proverbs, your thoughts provoke your life. And I even remember the moment it came true. When my ex came home from a business trip and announced that shocked me, I'm leaving you tonight. I was still nursing. I even remember the couch that I was sitting on and the pillows that were on it. I can remember the exact room at that exact time. And I remember thinking, oh my God, you just made me a single mom. My biggest fear. Why was I so afraid of that at the time? When now I would probably tell that woman, hey girl, let me tell you, it's going to get a lot better. This is actually a good moment in your life. But I thought, no one's going to love me again. I'm ruined. I had this fear of ever having someone accept me because I had 3 kids. I felt like I had a lot of baggage. And I didn't have a full-time job. I just had kind of a part-time fun job. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to make it. I wouldn't be able to provide for my kids. And I was afraid I was going to have to move in with my parents or just like try to make it in this tiny apartment and we were going to be poor. That was what I was afraid of. But it didn't happen that way because I started doing this. Step 2. The second way you can start living a full life is to start practicing self-care. For me, I didn't feel loved anymore, so I had to learn how to love myself. This will help you start living a full life right now, even after you've identified your fears. Stressful situations can easily bring out our fears, but taking care of yourself helps create this sense of peace within yourself that you can cope with all the challenges that are going on in your life right now a lot better. Taking time for yourself, you can do it. It allows for moments of self-reflection where you can identify any underlying worries or anxieties that might be holding you back from living your best life. Make sure that you schedule me time every day just for yourself. I get up early in the morning and I have to sit down with my journal and a cup of coffee and write down. I write down what I'm grateful for, 10 things. I write down my goals, my why, my pathways. You can get my whole morning plan if you want to make this your self-care completely free. It's at getyourbraveon.info, where the link is in the show notes. There's a video that comes with it on how to do this, your self-care morning. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's going for a walk in nature, getting a massage or acupuncture. I just did my first round and I loved it. Don't be afraid of those needles. It could be the best, most relaxing experience you ever have. Self-care gives you your strength back so you can face your fears. Identify them and then start taking care of yourself. So after I first became a single mom, I still had like maternity belly. I was still wearing maternity pants as my daughter was just 8 weeks old. I decided to go to the gym. That always made me feel good about myself. My therapist encouraged it because it releases that dopamine in your brain. It's scientific. It makes you feel good. And there was always this trainer at this Gold's Gym in Fairfax, Virginia. I remember it was on Gallows Road for my DC listeners. And I would always see him training people and like he would be training them like on the stairs. They'd be running up and down the stairs to the actual gym. And I went and I said, I want that guy. He was the toughest one there. And I started working out with him twice a week, and he gave me other workouts to do to get my body back after my 3rd baby. And it was the best thing I ever did. And it wasn't necessarily about my abs. My abs still aren't completely flat. I've had 3 babies. But it was that it made me feel strong. If I could survive one of Charles's workouts about doing those Supermans up and down the stairs, I could survive all the other hard things in my day. Because if I didn't quit on that, I wouldn't quit on myself. I wouldn't quit on my kids. I wouldn't quit on life. And I felt hot again. Like I felt desirable again. It was really important.
I'm Tony DeLorenzo, and this is my beautiful wife, Elisa.
Hey there.
We're hosts of the top-rated marriage podcast, The One Extraordinary Marriage Show. This is the show where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. Each episode, we share what you can do to create the extraordinary marriage you desire. With over 700 episodes, like Information Overload and Sex Pillows and Wedges, there's something for you. Come join us as we talk sex, love, and commitment. Subscribe to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show today. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on your favorite podcast app.
It was the best thing I ever did. Practicing self-care. Put yourself first. So that leads us to step number 3, to start living a full life again. The first one, identify and face your fears. The second one, just practice that self-care. The third one, this is when we start to take action and really believe in yourself. Once you identify your fears and you're taking steps towards practicing self-care, then it's time to take action. Start small by setting achievable goals that move you closer towards facing your fear head on and eventually overcome it altogether. This could mean going to a class at the gym or taking a workshop that's related to your goal of what you want to experience. Sign up for a webinar or get an online course about how to start a podcast. Reaching out to people who have done something similar to what you want to. Ask them how they did it if they go have coffee with you. Remember that the journey of conquering a fear takes courage and patience. So don't forget how believing in yourself is too. No one else knows the potential inside of you better than yourself and your Jesus. I remember this recent boss I had, who is not my boss anymore for one of these reasons, is I was talking on my radio show a lot about Get Your Brave On, my podcast, and I want to inspire people to live a strong and courageous life. And I did a little bit on my morning show every single day. And one day, I don't remember what started it, but he pulled me into his office and he said, I'm hearing this Get Your Brave On stuff, and I like it. He's an older gentleman. He goes, but what about all the people that don't want to be brave? Maybe we're not reaching them. Maybe you're being a little bit too pushy. And the assertive woman that I am in that moment said, well, they're my perfect audience. That's not what he expected. I think he expected me to feel bad about myself or, change what I was doing on my show. But I said, well, that's actually who I'm reaching because that's who I used to be. I get it. I know what I'm saying is a little challenging maybe. And I know asking you to write down your fears and start to take time in your busy life to take care of yourself and your body. It's a lot, especially when you're going through trauma. There were times I couldn't even get out of bed. I get it. But I'm telling you, you're wasting an opportunity. You're wasting your life. The cost of fear is tragic. Remember that quote from Anne Lamont. You don't want to get to 65 in life and realize you didn't do all those things. It's going to break your heart. So don't let it happen. I remember after I had put my life back together a year after my ex left us, and I had gotten to the gym and I felt like, hey, I'm in shape again. I kind of felt hot and I liked that. I moved across the country a year to the date that he left to California to start life over. I'd been in California once to Disneyland when I was a 13-year-old girl. And I just thought the entire state was my Disneyland. I loved it. I live in Northern California and it's just my jam because there's mountains and there's hiking trails and biking trails and I can go skiing and it's just an adventurer's paradise. The kids were still little. My oldest was in kindergarten. I had a preschooler and a baby that was still potty training at the time. And we did adventures every single weekend. I made a list of all the fun California places I wanted to see, like San Francisco and Sausalito and Tahoe. And every weekend I put all 3 kids in all 3 of their car seats in my mama van. And we went and we experienced life. Everyone was shocked. They're like, whoa, what happened here? I was like, I'm living my life. I'd realized that fear in my marriage had limited so much of my life because I was fear of anger and fear of being abused. I just kept everything peace. I didn't live. But boy, did I ever. I look back and I kind of miss that woman, that newly single, powerful, strong woman that had her huge future ahead of her and just was living life with a passion. The pandemic was hard. Having teenagers was hard. So I'm trying to get her back. I'm right there with you. Because I don't want that cost. I don't want to be that woman at 75 years old who has a broken heart because I didn't want to wear a swimsuit at the beach. I want to swim with my kids and play with them. I don't want to be that woman at 75 that didn't publish her book because she was afraid of what people would think. Or she was afraid of letting the world know the truth. Nah, I want to do it. My friend, Jesus wants you to live that strong and courageous life. He's begging you to do it. What does he say? What does he say about fear? Remember that. He says, God has not given you a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power and love and self-discipline. So it's time to take that list of your fears and apply what God says to it, his power and his love. And then give yourself a little self-discipline and do one brave thing a day to live the life that you've always wanted. Because it's up to you to live that life. It's up to you and God. Nobody else is going to do this for you. Nope. You're the one that's got to make the hard calls. You're the one that's got to put the fun adventures on the calendar. You're the one that's got to register for those classes. You're the one that starts to face that fear that's holding you back. I believe you can do it. Jesus believes you can do it. So put him in the game. I wanted to end this podcast with one more poem. This is from somebody I follow on Facebook, Donna Ashworth. She's incredible. It's called No Waiting Room. She says, what if you didn't wake up tomorrow and your soul is watching down, thinking of all the things that you didn't get to do yet because you were too scared or too shy or too worried about money? And all the things you told yourself you weren't good enough for swam in front of your eyes, fighting for a place in the line, beside the words you didn't say and the joy you forgot to have. My friend, there is absolutely no room for anything in your day other than acceptance. You will never have enough money or time, and you will certainly never have that perfect body the world told you you need to be happy. And before you say it's too late to embrace this thing we call life, no, it is not. You can do it right where you are, right this minute. Get outside, breathe, look at the trees, put your bare feet in the grass, hand on your heart to feel that pulse, and that's it. You're living. Keep that up. Wait for the moon sometimes, or get up early to see a sunrise just because you can. Jump in the lake, run, skip. The things you need to feel alive are free and all around, my friend. You just have to see them. Let in opportunity and say yes to the invitations that scare you a little in a good way. Say no to some of the things you force yourself to do, knowing they rinse you of your peace. Life was never supposed to be a waiting room. It was supposed to be a hillside with paths leading in every direction and mountains as far as the eye can see, hiding adventures and new friends behind them. Don't let yourself get to the end of this ride without having stopped to smell those beautiful roses. That's the only thing you need to fear in this life. Everything else is all part of it. It's all just a messy, complicated, beautiful, and terrifying part of it. Chin up, throw your arms wide open, and let it be so. And get your brave on.